Juan, welcome to Ocean 18.
Thank you for having me.
How do you like Vegas so far?
Las Vegas is cool. It's not my place. I'm not a gambler, but it's definitely a vibe here.
But that's not the first time because you and I like hang out like here, right?
Yes.
What's the thing that you hate the most about Vegas?
Seeing people around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you can tell the ones who have lost it all. That's the most depressing thing.
That's some tragic stories around the table. Do you gamble?
No.
So when you come here, you stay away from the table.
I say this is not my thing. I'd rather donate the money.
Of course.
To a cause, yeah.
Okay, seven questions like the 7 C's. I'm going to start from the first one right into it, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so imagine walking at the ocean deepest point where the immense pressure will crush any filled space in your body. Supposedly, it could crush your bones too. The bottom of the sea is where human limits are tested. As a matter of fact, I once read that we know more about the space above our heads than the ocean beneath our feet. So now picture navigating the depth of the advertising industry where our professional limits lie. What will be the equivalent of that crushing pressure that you find at the bottom of the sea?
It's funny you say that. It's like the conversation that we're having about integrity.
Right.
You know, being complicit. I'm doing something that's not positive for, you know, for just the world. You know, I think that's an important part of why we do this. You know, the way that you describe it. I'm glad that you described it the way that you did it. But when you think about that, it's just like keeping your integrity throughout the whole process. That's super important.
When did integrity become something so essential to you when you were like really young? Were there an episode in your life where you really had the comprehension of integrity, or gradually grew in you?
And that goes back when I'm a kid. You know, the way that I was raised by my family was like, I don't only represent myself and my family, I represent my culture, my people. So it's important to be honest and true to who I am as an individual.
Of course.
My family name, my legacy.
Legacy is very important.
Yes.
Is everything, I guess. The second question is this. The word rain in music directly connect me, at least, connect my mind to Purple Rain as like, you know, who doesn't love Prince? There was a song that was initially intended to be a country tune, and I know that you probably know this more than I do, you being like an expert in music and working in the music industry. Steve Nick received a 10-minute instrumental version from Prince, but she was too overwhelmed to write the lyrics. And so this shows that good ideas can surprise and intimidate us. When was the last time that you were intimidated or surprised by an idea?
Well, the thing is, the way I like to come at every idea that I get is I try to be humble, you know. And I think there's a level of intimidation that always happens because you want to be able to execute on the highest level. So I think almost in everyone I get intimidated, I want to start back over fresh. Like when I hear idea, especially working with a producer or a creative or anybody, is that I want to come at it as a child of like, let me just step back. I don't know if it's the words intimidated or it's just more of a just, let me be humbled. Let me just process this. Let me go back to the innocence of when I first got into the industry, or at least making.
Right. Humble is one of the word and one of the word that is most commonly used in advertising. I think that is sometimes an overused word. I want to really ask you, like, open this word for me a little bit. When you say you are humble by an idea, what do you really mean by humble? Like, open up a little bit that for me.
It's to serve.
Serve.
To serve. That's what it means to me. Being humble, to serve, to be a part of a process, to be open, to take in energy, let it go through the system, and then output good energy to me.
You were saying offline about when about Steve Nicks or something. I don't know if you have like an inside story, but I would love to know if you know anything about this little anecdote that happened between Prince and Steve Nicks.
I don't know the exact story. I just know,
Of course,
like,
but
yeah.
like it's a urban legend. But I would love to know your version.
It was just like, she brought in someone to do something that she just wanted. She embraced it. She was humble going to him, and he came in there and he just did his thing. And to be honest with you, when I work with anybody in the industry, if they let me do my thing and let me be me 100%, it tends to be a little different. I think in our industry, what we get into is like when people like bring in different experts to kind of help build on a project, that they try to make that person work the way that they work.
Absolutely.
But from my reference point that I come from is very different than an average person in our industry. I grew up with a mother who was a musician. I grew up around bands. I was that kid in a nightclub. And people were like, who's that kid in a nightclub? I grew up around different artists and painters. My mother was a painter as well. So when people allow you to be yourself, it's magical. It's magic.
And when they don't allow you to be yourself, that's when frustration, anger, and a lot of like bad emotions like surface.
Well, when I first got in the industry and I would work with someone, I was like, oh, let me just be like that person. And then when things go south, or even when it works, it just didn't feel right.
You're
so,
right.
And it takes time to get the confidence that you have, as well as being humble throughout the whole process. So, and it's something that every project is new. Every project is a challenge. Every project, I learn and try to take something away from it,
Third question, it's a myth that drinking salt water makes you crazy. It actually disrupt your electrolytes level. And so what it does, impair your mind, the body to function properly. So it's not that drinking salt water makes you crazy. It just like screw up your electrolyte level. And consequently, your body can function properly. In the advertising industry, what myth should be debunked once for all? Because we live inside a bubble, which is the advertising industry, and we have a lot of myth. I've seen a lot of myth. And once for all, if you were like to come out clean and transparent and say, okay, once and for all, let's debunk all this myth. It's not as you think it is.
I don't know, there's so many. The first thing that came to my mind was like, fix it in post was the first thing that came to my mind. But it's just like, again, it's different myths out there that I just try not to pay attention to. I really don't. Certain people, you know what? There is a myth that anybody can speak for anyone. And what I mean by that is that I've been in rooms throughout my industry where somebody took the authority to be able to speak for a certain people, individuals, experts, whatever, and they felt like they were the de facto voice. I think that's a myth.
I think it's also a myth that, and that tie me back to integrity. Advertising like to portray itself as this amazing place where it welcomes who you are for who you are. Well, I think I found this a total myth, because when you enter and walk into a big corporation, they want you to blend in. They don't want you to stand out. They want you to follow the process. They don't want you to go off path. And in some kind of corporation, in corporate America, to stand out is a problem, is an inconvenience. To blend in, it's much easier. In fact, you can see with generally the people that get to the top are the ones that were able to blend in. The people that truly are one of a kind are very, very rarely go to the top because they are inconvenient. So to me, when the advertising comes in a manifesto like rhetorical, speech and say, we welcome you for who you are, that's bullshit. I call bullshit.
Okay, I'm going to call bullshit on what you're saying.
Well, please.
Yeah, I'm going to call bullshit. And the reason why I do that is because I worked with people in my career who let me be my authentic self. And I want to kind of name some people because they have a very interesting way of working with me, and they let me be my true self. Mark Tutzel, Susan Credo, Liz Taylor, Vincent Garrity. These are people I can roll off.
Right.
The Chris Rossiter. These were people that I could, who let me. I mean, they just embraced me, and I come in from a different reference point. Oftentimes, come off as raw, but for those individuals who trust me, and they let me do what I need to do to get a project done, to create something, to execute.
I was talking for a generic level. Of course, like if you were analyzing the situation from your perspective, for
Yes.
your very personal perspective, as you're doing, of course you will call bullshit and like on what you say, of course.
Yes.
I also like found a few people that allow me to be myself, and I also like attempted to be myself throughout my career. However, a few times I paid the price for walking in
Sure.
as my true self. On a generic level, when you just like, for instance, like, and again, I'm generalizing here, of course, because I can't ring the door of every single person in the advertising, but on a generic level, I think it's a little bit of a myth. When you get into, and a stress, into a corporation, into corporate America, there is a reason why Chuck Palahniuk, that wrote Fight Club, called the corporate America the biggest tragedy in modern society. There's a reason why, because it really kill your spirits. It could kill your spirits, like, you know. So I think what I was trying to do, it was trying just to, I wouldn't say lose my perspective, but amplify my funnel and not just looking like through my experience, because I've been quite lucky, to be
Yeah.
honest. I was always,
Same.
I never had to hide myself, but I also pay a price.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of like I did a film in school. It's called Dual Images in Our Society. It was a short film I did about how I need to. Oh, you know what? People call it code switching now, and it just kind of talked about you have to code switch. Sure, have I had to do it? Yes. You know, I had to code switch to kind of fit in, but then you lose
See, I
yourself.
don't have that. I never had that. I
Same.
never wanted to have a code switch. And that's why I think like when you constantly, you avoid, there is no plan B, there is no code switch, you constantly be yourself, you bump into problem and obstacle within the corporate setting.
You can. It depends on where it's coming from. It depends, like
course.
certain, you know, like
Certain situations,
Yeah,
yeah.
certain situations. But code switching, when I've done it in the past, it just hasn't really worked out for me. In fact, when I turned it off and I was like, let me be my true, authentic self. And this is after I've been through this industry I've gained a reputation and, you know, and did really well for the company. People will allow you to do that. I've become more successful.
It's so interesting you said this is like a very, I love that we have in this conversation, and probably Joy, our greatest editor here and videographer, remember last year we had a jury president. I think we touched upon the same thematic. I remember like he say, if I were to give an advice to a young creative that starts in advertising, I would say blend in, don't stand out, because it will cause you a lot of problem. So just to show you how, like, you know, people that work within the same industry have like very different point of view about this topic. So that's why I think like I call it a myth, because there is a lot of charge energy around this idea of be your true self. And it sounds amazing, but de facto, it's very difficult to put it in practice and to like, you know, have it like work within the system. You know what I mean?
You got to get with a good team of people.
Yeah.
You got to work with really good people.
I give an example, and this is like a go everywhere in every kind of field. J.D. Salinger was an amazing writer, but to get his stuff published, he wrote for several years in the style that he knew New York Times, the New Yorker, would accept his short story. It wasn't his style. So he had a cold switch. Once the New Yorker started publishing his story, Then he finally started writing the way he wanted. So he's very, very analytic, very intelligent, very smart, very cunning. He wrote that way purposely. You know, so there is a lot of like different facets of the same kind of like situation. But
It's funny the way that you explain it. I would say the biggest way, and let me further explain to you what I mean by code switching. I think that I had to show a lot less of me to fit in. You know, I had to, you know, not like the same music, but I had to just like be quieter.
tone down.
I had to tone down. I couldn't because I didn't want people. Listen, you got to understand something. I step into a room. I'm a large, you know, person of color. The intimidation factor when you work in certain rooms, you got to come in as being humbled and not timid, but you just want to make sure that I'm very aware of my presence and how I could appear to individuals because they're just not used to seeing someone who looks like me in the same room with them, especially at the same level or higher. So it's a way of how you have to, it's a safety mechanism that most people of color have to adapt to, especially, you know, when you work at certain places. But I try to surround myself with great people, you know. And also, I make sure that I have great mentors and people to help me get through the tough times, which is super important.
Okay, fourth question. Backwash waves move towards the ocean instead of the coast, creating a counter movement. We usually focus on waves moving forward, but there is also like a reverse mode. With this in mind, I challenge you, we constantly pitch ourselves into this business. But I want you to come out with an elevator pitch for you to pitch yourself out of this business. What would that elevator pitch be? I want you pitch me the story that you've done. You're out of this business.
To get out of the business?
Out of the business. I want you to do the counter movement. We always spend our time as a creative to pitch ourselves to get into the place, into the place, into the place. But what if for once I'm asking you, pitch yourself to leave the place. Pitch yourself, are you going to get out of the place?
I mean, it's easy. Me stop being myself.
You stop being yourself.
I stop being
You
myself.
already get back to that.
Yeah, I'll stop being myself. It's like once I feel that, then it's time for me to go.
So it's going to be a silent pitch? It's going to be like a gradually, like, you know,
No,
process?
No, I usually just nip it in the bud immediately. If I feel like I'm in a hostile situation where it's not going to, and you got to understand something. I'm a father. I'm a
Of course,
dad.
I'm a father as well.
So, you know, like there's so many different, you know, there's certain situations I'll put myself in because I have a family to take care of.
Of course.
So I have to keep that in mind. Also, I have to keep that in mind as being a person, a human being, a man, et cetera, et cetera. And also my integrity. I gotta weigh that. But once I feel like you severed something, then I have to step myself out, and I'll make it immediately, and I'll make it abrupt. Keep it professional, and of course, I'll talk to my friends and mentors like Vita Harris, just to make sure I'm not going over the deep end. But I'll just try to take myself out of the situation.
Okay, good. Maya Angelou, an American memoirist, poet, and civil rights activist who crossed many oceans and embraced the global spirit of humanity, once said, "Because of the routine we follow, we often forget that life is an ongoing adventure. And the sooner we realize that, the quicker we'll be able to treat life as art." What inspires you the most about the life you're living right now at this moment? What inspires you the most?
My family.
Your family.
My family inspires me the most.
It's a continuous inspiration.
Yes, because the things that I learn and the things I'm able to bring back to my family and help educate and help and seeing them grow.
That inspires you.
Yes, 100%. It's just like to see, I do something different. I have 2 kids. I show my son how to do photography and directing because that's one side of me. And then the other side of me is a musician, and that's what I concentrate on with my daughter. And I wanted to make sure that they have 2 different experiences from their dad that is unique to themselves. But then that gives me the fuel just to keep going, because the more that I learn is the more that I can teach, and the more that that stuff will just work its way down to, my lineage. I know I sound like an old archaic guy, but I just
No,
really
I
believe in
mean,
that.
like, look, like you talking to another father, and I think, like, I believe when we talk about last year, I believe like your kids have around the same age of my kid.
Yes.
So I mean, you're stepping to the same land. We live the same universe. So I totally, I found inspiration to my family as well, for different reasons, of course.
Hey, but when you with your kids, the one thing I notice that's super important is you see yourself in your children. You see the good and you see the bad, and by me seeing the things that I want to work on, it just helps me out. It's like that reminder of like I need to do better, and I need to be better. I need to be a better human being, a better person, So it works both ways.
Yeah. Sixth question here. Ice evaporates even in cold darkness.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that you could do as an experiment. Notice the ice cube in your freezer after a long vacation. If you leave the ice cube, when you come back, they shrink. They shrunk.
Mm-hmm.
However, if mixed with salt, they remain unchanged for years. You can do this little experiment.
Okay.
So, like, if next time you go on vacation,
Mm-hmm.
if you add salt to the ice cube, you will see they will never change in any form or shape. But if you don't put salt in the ice cube, they will actually shrink. The same happened to creativity, I think. You left it in the dark and it evaporates, but mixed with the right ingredient is strength. What do you think that essential ingredient is that creativity needs to stay vibrant? Like the ice cube needs the salt.
Mm-hmm.
What does creativity need in order to not shrink, to stay vibrant and powerful?
It's to be curious.
Curious.
To be curious on all things.
What about freedom? What about freedom in creativity? Because we work, like our creativity is applied to business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's not an open land.
Mm-hmm.
It had to work within certain constraint.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's what we call creative freedom, like the freedom to execute, to fail,
Mm-hmm.
to try, to attempt? Do you think it's paramount?
Well, the thing is like, are we ever really free? Are we free of all things?
Well, it depends what kind of significance you assign to freedom. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that if I'm writing right now, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
I quit my job and I've been writing a novel for like the past 12 months, probably a year now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's hope that it all goes well. I'm towards the last chapter, but that to me is the ultimate freedom, because I'm not writing because I need to like show my stuff to an editor. I don't need. I don't write because I want to publish. I'm writing just for myself, and to get there every morning in front of the computer and start writing a new paragraph is the ultimate freedom, because there's nothing around me. There's nothing that's stopping by myself. That's to me freedom.
Okay. But my question to you would be like, do you feel like you have, and I'm just curious,
Of
do you feel
course.
like you have freedom because you are a father and you have to be responsible, or you should be, it depends on what your flavor is. I know for me, is that true? Is that really giving you true freedom to
I think
limitations,
I answer you with it's so serendipitous. There is a movie, I think it's called The Gambler,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a scene between John Goodman and Mark Wahlberg.
Mm-hmm.
And John Goodman go into this monologue, which is it's beautiful, written, and the monologue is called "Fuck You Money."
I love that one. I just watched it the other
And
day.
the "Fuck You Money" is not about having like millions of dollars.
Yep.
It's about just like pay off your house, build a fortress solitude,
Yes.
and have reached a state where you can say, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're still providing somehow for your family. No, you're not enriching your family of like additional money, but you're providing like a good lifestyle.
Yep.
Not a lascivious lifestyle, but a good lifestyle. But that is fuck you money. That's freedom.
True, but I think every artist is curious and they want to learn and try different things, and so it depends. Everybody, I know, if you were to ask me, do I have freedom? I would say yes. I have complete freedom. I have the support system that's set up for me to succeed. I have my wife.
But then you have responsibility.
I have responsibilities
of course,
that I need to rein in because I know I can't. I have to track. But no, it's funny the sacrifice that your loved ones give to you, so I'm able to have the freedom. But I want to make sure I just don't take advantage of it, if that makes sense.
That's a good point.
Okay,
look, last question. You have been invited by Leah to preside over the branded content and brand entertainment jury. Now imagine going out tonight and meeting someone who knows nothing about advertising, nothing about words, nothing about marketing, is not familiar with the industry jargon. How would you spark their interest to the point that they say, can you invite me to the show?
I would first off by saying that I think the modern day contemporary artist is in advertising.
Oh, okay. That's a good
That's the first thing I would say. I would say this is a place where you can make anything. You can do anything. I have this impression and I learned it in college. Like if I put my mind to it, I really believe that I can do it. And I think that in advertising is a place where you as an artist could work with brands and different people to build some amazing things, and that affects the world, and it changes the world across the board. I remember when I first went to an award show, and I walked in and I was like, yeah, I'm dope. I'm really good at what I do, da 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 da. And I walked into the award show and I started looking at other people's work, and it humbled me because I was like, wait, hold on. Somebody else is so much better. And I'm like, the emotions of just the work of, and I got it from print work. And it was
I got the moment. It was, I think it was back before the 2000. I was working at Liuburla Milan. They sent me to Cannes. At that time, I don't know if it's still like this, but at that time you enter the Palais, and they will, for the commercial, they will actually project your commercial on a screen, so you will go and see.
Yep.
And I remember entering, our commercial was supposed to be kind of funny. I remember the Palais being like kind of, this room was kind of crowded, and our commercial comes in and nobody laughed. It was completely flop. And I felt so bad. It destroyed me. I was so young. I was expecting oh, now my commercial on screen. But I will always remember that moment, the way I felt. It almost shrunk my perspective, and it gave me the motivation to, of course, work harder. But it was a tough moment. It was a tough lesson learned.
It humbled you.
Yeah. Look, thank you so much for being on board of Ocean 18. I wish you the best and great continuation to the jury.
Yes, I'm really happy.
Thank you,
and appreciate you for taking the time.